Of all the card games I've ever played, Set easily has the highest variance for beginners. When I first learned how to play with a few friends, there were some of us who picked it up instantly, even winning against those who had played before. For others, like myself, I was averaging maybe 2 sets a game if I was lucky. The rules are incredibly simple. Each card in the deck has 4 attributes: color, shape, number, and fill. Of each attribute, there are 3 options. In the standard version, we have the following. For colors, we have red, green, and purple. For shape, we have diamonds, ovals, and squiggles. For number, we have 1, 2, and 3, and for fill, we have empty, lined, and filled. So, for those of you at home, this means there are 3 to the power of 4 cards in the deck, or 81 unique cards. The game deck is made up of these 81 possible unique cards, with no duplicates. A set is defined as a collection of 3 cards where, for each attribute, all the cards are either all the same or all different. In this example, each of the cards are equal in color, all different in shape, all equal in number, and all different in fill. Another example would be here. In this case, each card is different in every single attribute, something I call negative space when I was first learning the game to simplify the search process. However, the following 3 cards would not be a set. This is because in the attribute of fill, 2 of the cards are the same, being completely filled, while one of them differs, being lined in their texture. The game begins with 12 cards laid out at random from the deck. Any player can claim they've found a set. If they're correct, those 3 cards get added to their collection, and 3 new cards are laid out from the main deck. Cards do not ever get re-added to the deck. If the person who claimed to have found a set was incorrect, the game continues. If people abuse this, there are some house rules where you can add penalties for incorrect calls to stop people from stalling the game or breaking other people's concentration. There sometimes will be cases where the board won't actually have a possible set, or the players might not just be able to find one. And in their case, players can agree to add 3 more cards to the board. If you end up not being able to find any sets or add any cards, the game is over, and whoever found the most sets wins. While the rules are quite simple, there are actually 1,080 unique sets. To see this, pick any of the first 81 cards as our starter card. Then, we can pick any of the next 80 as our second. With these 2 cards fixed, the third card is uniquely determined. For each of the 4 features, the third card must have a value that makes the trio all the same or all different. So, there's exactly 1 card that completes the set given the first 2. Lastly, we divide by 3 factorial since we could have picked any of these 3 cards in any order, so we have 81 times 80 divided by 6, or 1080 unique sets. Of course, this logic dictates that the probability of drawing a set from 3 random cards out of the deck is 1 out of 79, since we can pick any 2 cards and we have 79 options for the third card. That's obviously not a very sustainable strategy. In contrast, the set competitive leaderboard, linked in the description, indicates that the fastest time one person has cleared the deck by themselves in classic mode is 23.32 seconds, held by Offset. That run has been the only verified run, as of this video's release, where someone is finding more than 1 set every second. The reason why people are able to solve games so quickly is partially aided by the digitization in the game. When Set first came out, it was sold as an actual physical deck of 81 cards. However, most speedrunners these days play on the website setwithfriends.com. As of this video's recording, there are over 11 million games played, and the website usually averages around 50 to 100 people online at a time. You can start private games as well as public lobbies. There's also an elo system similar to online chess websites, and you can save your stats by linking your profile with your Google account. In fact, I'd argue that playing online is preferable to playing in person. If you play at home with the actual cards, someone has to be the one to deal the cards, which arguably skews fairness, since their hands are already touching the cards as they get laid out. But playing online removes the third parties, and also means you can select cards incredibly quickly with your keyboard, lowering your in-game times. Still, what can we take away from these speedrunners? Well, here are 7 tips I have for winning games, assuming you play on the website. Tip number 1, get comfortable with your keyboard. Something I immediately suggest doing after linking your account and starting your first game is to press the :/semicolon key on your keyboard in-game. This rotates the individual cards 90 degrees, which in my opinion makes it easier to see all the cards on the board at once when you do the next step, which is to press the single/double quote button on your keyboard. This rotates the entire board 90 degrees. Although it seems trivial at first, doing this is actually so beneficial. After pressing these 2 buttons, which you only have to do once ever if you enjoy these settings, it'll map the top left card to the letter Q on the standard QWERTY keyboard. You should be able to deduce what cards are relative to the top left card at this point. For instance, the bottom left card will be then mapped to Z. The reason why we do this is because of what happens if more than 3 cards are added in the game. Each new column is just a column on the standard keyboard. So, for example, the 5th column added, which is when the board gets to 15 cards, is TGB, and so on. Tip number 2. Remember the positions of the cards that have just been removed. Imagine a scenario where we have 12 cards in exactly one set on the board. When that set is found, those other 9 cards that remain on the board obviously won't have a set within those 9 cards. As a result, it is often easier to look at the 3 new cards and ask yourself what the requisite cards are needed to build the set from the new cards, and then search for those desired cards in the 9. This also means that when there are more than 12 cards on the board, ignore the original 12 when starting your search. The website Set with Friends automatically adds cards to the overlay for you if the board fails to contain a set, so you don't have to ever worry about asking for more cards. Tip number 3. Optimize your naive search. On a first scan, you can note that any 2 cards will fix what the 3rd card should be in order for that trio to be a set. Thus, you can essentially keep a memory bank of what cards would have been nice to have, and if you ever encounter one down the line when you haven't used the original 2, you have a set. This is what I like to personally call set hashing, although I'm not sure if there's a predefined term for it. It's particularly useful when you run into dead ends and need to start searching from scratch. We're about halfway through the tips now, and if you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. It might seem trivial to you, but it goes a long way in supporting the channel for both motivation and algorithmic purposes. Anyway, back to the video. Tip 4 is watch the distribution of the features very carefully. Everyone's brain is wired differently, but I'm guessing that most beginners find similarities easier than finding negative space. As a result, if you see a lot of one specific feature showing up, for example, all the cards are red, or there are a lot of singles, odds are that there's probably a set within it. This isn't guaranteed always, but in the cases where it isn't, you can utilize the previous tip and essentially hash all these cards into memory before searching other sections. In this case, if you didn't see the set of the 3 red striped singles and saw the solid red diamond instead, maybe you'd hash it with the 2 green striped diamonds. If you're solely focused on diamonds, you could also hash cards that need a diamond too. Tip number 5 is set vision. This tip is definitely one of the more advanced ones, but keeping track of the types of sets you've already found can make things much easier for you in the late game. For instance, in the early game, if you find a bunch of sets that take a lot of purple cards to complete, start looking for cross-color sets or homogeneous sets within red and green instead. Tip number 6, accounting for other people's strategies. This tip is very situational, so I'm keeping it near the end, but it might be better than nothing. If you're playing an opponent you know, and know the patterns they commonly look for, you can either play into that pattern and trust that you'll be faster, or you can safely spend your time looking for other patterns, knowing they might get stuck. Tip number 7 is practice. This is by far the biggest and most important piece of advice. When I first started playing solo set, I was averaging 10 minutes a game, and it took me about a month of dedicated practice every day before I could get down to around a 3-minute average. A lot of the time, I forced myself to finish games when I was struggling with a specific set, and refused to use a solver until I wasted tons of time. These days, there are actually so many practice tools, and stick around to the end of the video for some advice on the best ways to practice. Aside from in-game strategy though, something I found revolutionary when practicing was learning the mathematics behind set, and that's what this next bit of the video will be about. Imagine visualizing each card as a 4-dimensional vector. For example, one red solid oval could be mapped to 0, 0, 0, 0, while 2 green striped diamonds could be 1, 1, 1, 1, and 3 purple open squiggles would be 2, 2, 2, 2. Then, each set forms a line in this vector space, which can be determined if the sum of the 3 vectors is the 0 vector modulo 3. This is how you can get deep research into questions like, what is the maximum number of cards needed before a set is guaranteed to appear? The answer is 21. What is the probability that a game never needs more than 12 cards on the board at a time? The answer is around 30%. Or, what is the maximum number of sets possible in a 12-card configuration? The answer is 14. You can also use this construct as a neat party trick. If you're playing the game properly, when it gets time to flip over the last card, you can actually predict what it's going to be, based on the characteristics of the other cards facing up. The sum of all cards as vectors must be the 0 vector modulo 3 by the end of the game, so it becomes a quick exercise of algebra to figure out what the hidden card is. Try this example while I explain why it works. Essentially, every time you remove a set from the board, or more broadly, the deck without replacement, for that specific set, every feature is either all the same or all different. As a result, you're subtracting either 3 from one feature bucket if they're all the same, or you're subtracting 1 from each of the 3 buckets. Either way, the total amount of subtraction that you're doing is still divisible by 3 each time, so that's why the trick works. Note that this isn't for any subset of randomly selected cards though. It has to be from removing sets from the deck. Back to the puzzle answer, if you got 2 striped purple diamonds, you'd be correct. To wrap up this video, I'll go over some interesting variants of set and show how these can be used both for practice as for beginners or as a challenge for more experienced players. A few months ago, the website Set with Friends got functionally cyber-attacked by bots, so players created an alternate website called Set with Forks. Both URLs are linked in the description, but while the main website was being fortified, the backup forked website created a ton of minigames that you can't find on the main link. Make sure to check out the forked help page. It adds tons of explanation for what I'm about to go over and explains important keyboard shortcuts too. The only downside of the forked site is that there's less people online on average. You can probably tell by this monstrosity of a menu that options are aplenty. The first 4 versions are currently available on the main site, but the remaining ones aren't. Of all of the options, Junior and Puzzle are probably the most efficient way to learn the game. Junior just removes the texture of the card and makes everything solidly filled in, which is one less attribute for beginners that have to worry about. Puzzle shows you a board of cards and won't move on until you've found every possible set on that board. This gives you plenty of space across various types of sets and can help beginners learn the concept of negative space. Another mode to use once you've gotten a little more experience is Shuffle. It's standard set, but every time you find a set, it just shuffles the cards on the board to stop you from only looking at the cards that just came in. If you want a fast time in this mode, it forces you to work on your card hashing and intuition from a fresh board. Of the advanced options, 4 set is probably the simplest to explain. It's basically just set, but with 4 options per feature. So orange is an additional color, the hourglass is an additional shape, 4 becomes an additional number, and checkerboard becomes an additional fill option. The other interesting one is Mega Set, where you still have your classic 3 options per feature, but now the border outline also becomes a feature. So you have your normal border, a double border, and a dotted border. Memory is also pretty much exactly what it sounds like, and honestly, I've never really tried Ghost Set. Lastly, if you want explanations on Set Chain or Ultra Set, you can find them on the help page of the main website. If you really enjoyed playing the game, consider joining the Set Discord. It's actively run by some of the top players and has a really friendly grassroots environment. The fork site is even run by some of the admins, and you can tell they care so much about the game. That's all I have for this video though. This one was kind of a long one, and I've been thinking how to do it justice for a while now. I put at least 200 hours into the Set with Friends website and wanted to dedicate this video towards directing some traffic onto it. I'm pretty sure that it's even unblocked on school Wi-Fi these days, but that might be subject to change. For other channel updates, I've been reading a lot on distributed computing these days, so maybe expect a video series to start on that. I'm really interested in moving the channel towards long-term video planning, where I have a bunch of ideas connected under one umbrella, so let me know what your feedback is on that. I'll still try to keep making these game videos though, as I can tell people enjoy them. If you like the video, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.